Book 2 of Paradise Lost starts with Satan in hell and arguably ends up with him worse off at the end of the book than he was at the beginning. He's fallen as far as it's possible to fall, and yet he keeps creating further places to fall. There is no end to the defeat that he can visit on himself. Here is how he begins in a parody of kingship or a model of human kingship. High on the throne of royal state, which far outshone the wealth of Hormos and Navind, or where the gorgeous East with richest hand showers on her kings barbaric pearl and gold, Satan exalted sat, by merit raised to that bad eminence, and from despair, thus high uplifted beyond hope, aspires beyond thus high, insatiate to pursue vain war with heaven, and by success untaught his proud imaginations thus displayed. Opening up to another fabulous speech by Satan, which I will not cover. Yet another fabulous, deceptive, self-deceiving speech. I want to point out a few things there. He is described as very Eastern. On one level, Milton's imagination is colonialist, where he exoticizes Asia and makes it a seat he views it as morally uncertain. It's barbaric pearl and gold, not European. That is not an excuse. That is an explanation. He also wants to use lots of he wants to use, because this is a universal epic, not the epic of one people, but of the entire human species, he will use far distant geographical similes all the time. Tashkent, Uzbekistan, everywhere. Any place he can find in an atlas, he will name check to give us a sense of that vast scope that covers the whole globe, or the globe and more. So the wealth of Hermos and Ind. Satan, but then there's a complicated mix of what's happened. Satan exalted sat. Exalt is something you are exalted by others. People are exalting him. The other demons are raising him up. By merit raised to that bad eminence. And by merit raised, so he's raised by merit. Usually his deserts, his merits have raised him high, but it's a bad eminence. And there's a sense that this is what he deserves, but this is what he deserves. His merit is negative. This is actually a bad place to be. And from despair, thus high uplifted beyond hope. He's from despair, which is also a spiritual. In Christian discourse, despair is a sin. It is the sin of giving up any hope that you can be redeemed. Satan certainly committed this. He's committed the primary sin of pride, but now he's having the sin of despair, which people like Spencer and Milton think of as the flip side of pride. Too proud to believe that you can be saved by God. Aspires thus beyond thus high, insatiate to pursue vain war with heaven. Yeah, he's going to start another war with heaven. By success untaught. Success in Milton's generation means the outcome. The success is what happened. We mean success is winning. And here the irony is, he's not untaught, by success untaught. Well, he hasn't been taught by success because he hasn't had any success. He hasn't learned from his failure. Not taught by, untaught by success untaught, not taught by success, has the double meaning of not learning from the outcomes and also not learning from victory because he hasn't had any victory. His proud imaginations thus displayed. Milton, like us, is very good at putting his imaginary world, his fantasy world, between him and realities he doesn't want to accept. The first half of this book is consumed with a dialogue in hell, a parliament in hell. A few things about that quickly. I don't want to cover it in detail. One thing about it is, okay, you get to see a whole bunch of other demonic, eloquent speakers taking different positions, all of which are in various ways, C.S. Lewis has argued, shows various kinds of rationalizations for sin. Moloch, it's like, let's fight outright. Let's go back and do it again. And maybe get destroyed. Can we be destroyed? Are we totally immortal? Or can we be wiped out so we don't exist? Because I would take that right now. I wouldn't feel any pain. Belial is like, I'm going to be, no, let's try this. Let's just try not to make God angry anymore. Various when finally Beelzebub like, yeah, we have to have war. It's got to be war, but it's got to be secret war. And then, hey, let's go get revenge on. God has a new plan, a place called Earth, a new species of beings called man. Let's ruin them. That'll be revenge. It's also the case that people have noticed this seems like a parliament. Remember, Milton's politics, he was on the parliament side in a revolution against the king, and that revolution had failed by the time he wrote this poem. He wrote this poem in disgrace and defeat after the revolution he'd given his eyesight for had been overturned and the kings had come back. The devils make various anti-monarchist statements, and people are like, well, is he on their side? Like this is actually very strange. Like, well, you're an anti-monarchist and you're part of a defeated revolution. Here are the defeated rebels using this kind of language. But again, Milton doesn't view what's appropriate for heaven. Like, Milton doesn't want to rebel against God. He wants to rebel against other human beings because they're other human beings. That he views the kings as more like Satan than like God. On this note, this is again the argument that like the fallen world, our human world, isn't unlike this world. And where is my color-coded? Where are my color-coded notes? Ah, yes. So, on page 58, line 480, 42. Satan is again an epic hero in this poem, though the kind of undercutting of him begins also in this book. But by the end of book 2, he's been undercut again. They have to find their way through chaos, through this terrifying place. Actually, let me go back to a speech of Satan's at line 430. O progeny of heaven, imperial thrones. He always talks about his angels as if they're still in heaven, as if they haven't fallen, as if they're still angels and not demons. O progeny of heaven, imperial thrones, with a reason hath deep silence and demure seized us, though undismayed. Long is the way and hard that out of hell leads up to light. Our prison strong, this huge convex of fire, outrageous to devour, immures us round ninefold, and gates of burning adamant barred over us prohibit all egress. These past, if any pass, the void profound of unessential night receives him next wide gaping, with utter loss of being threatens him, plunged in that abortive gulf. If thence escape into whatever world or unknown region, what remains him less than unknown dangers and his hard escape? But I should ill become this throne, O peers, and this imperial sovereignty adorned with splendor, armed with power, if aught proposed and judged of public moment in the shape of difficulty or danger could deter me from attempting. Wherefore do I assume these royalties, and not refuse to reign, refusing to accept as great a share of hazard as of honor, due alike to him who reigns, and so much to him is due, as of hazard more, as above he the rest high honored sits. I am king, and I took the leadership, I should take the danger. This is, in human terms, a laudable position. Satan has virtues. He has virtues as we understand them in our fallen, morally unmoored world. And the other angels, fallen angels, like, that's great, that's terrific, yay, hooray, Satan, woo, Satan. From 480, nor failed they express how much they praised that for the general safety he despised his own. For neither do the spirits damned lose all their virtue, lest bad men should boast their specious deeds on earth, which glory excites, or close ambition varnished o'er with zeal. Fallen angels do not lose all their virtues. They still have good qualities. Does that mean because they're good, like they're not so bad? Oh, they're bad. Even the worst beings, the fallen angels, according to Milton, have some virtues. That means the fact that you have some virtues here on earth, you can still be a villain. Well, you know, he might have done these terrible things, but he has this, he was so patriotic and he's so brave in battle. Yeah, well, he's still a genocide, man. That's it. Those things do not outweigh it. Yes, these are evil people with some heroic qualities. What does this make Satan? Heroic or just dangerous? I wish he had fewer qualities. I wish he'd be more like Belial, conflict averse, chicken. Uh, the and then if you wanted to, if you want to make it, if you want to make clearer, there's a the connection between the damned and the human. As Satan goes off on his big frightening adventure, the other demons do a bunch of perfectly wonderful human activities. First of all, they have a bunch of games, page 430, as at the Olympic Games at Pythian Fields. They start having they start sports, right? They're doing they're doing games. They play the Olympic theme. They on 540 from line 548. 546. Others more mild, retreated in a silent valley, sing with notes angelical to many a harp their own heroic deeds and hapless fall. By doom of battle, complain that fate free virtue should enthrall to force or chance. Their song was partial, biased, but the harmony, what could it less when spirits immortal sing, suspended hell and took with ravishment the thronging audience. What did they just do? They just wrote an epic poem. They wrote an epic poem like this epic poem about their own defeat in the war in heaven. They wrote an epic that's basically book 6 of this poem. And Milton implies they do it better because they're smarter than he is. They're supernaturally intelligent and gifted. They're wicked. They're better poets than he is, too. It's beautiful. They make great art. The fallen angels in hell, the damned souls, are making great art. This does not make them not damned or not evil. There is no human endeavor, according to Milton, including the human endeavor he's undertaking, that makes up for being evil. And after that, there are the philosophers. In discourse more sweet, for eloquence the soul, song charms the sense. Others apart sat on a hill retired, in thoughts more elevate and reasoned high of providence, foreknowledge, will, and fate, fixed fate, free will, foreknowledge absolute, and found no end in wandering mazes lost. Of good and evil much they argued then, of happiness and misery, passion, apathy, and glory and shame, vain wisdom all, and false philosophy. Yet with a pleasing sorcery could charm pain for a while or anguish, and excite fallacious hope, or arm the adored breast with stubborn patience as with triple steel. They do philosophy and theology, the highest of arts. This poem is also a philosophical poem about questions of fate, free will, destiny. They are arguing the very philosophical and theological ideas that occupy Milton. They're still damned. They're just locked in a maze, an intellectually sterile maze, because they're damned. Satan makes his way through the incredibly difficult primordial chaos. First through hell, then to the gates of hell, and then through primordial chaos. He goes on a courageous voyage like Aeneas and Odysseus before him. From line 629. Meanwhile, the adversary of God and man, Satan, with thoughts inflamed of highest design, puts on swift wings and towards the gates of hell explores his solitary flight. Sometimes he scours the right-hand coast, sometimes the left, now shaves with level wing the deep, then soars up to a fiery concave towering high, as when far off at sea a fleet descried hangs in the clouds by equinoctial winds, close sailing from Bengala or the isles of Ternate or Tidore, where merchants bring their spicy drugs while they on the trading flood through the wide Ethiopian to the Cape ply, stemming nightly toward the pole, so seemed far off the flying fiend. These like merchant ships seem far away at sea. He gets to a horrible place, and he meets sin and death, his children. Just when we've built up as a hero, we knock him down again. He meets his children, his son and grandson, Death, whom he begot on his daughter and mistress, Sin. He and Death go at each other with a dart. Later in Christian theology, both Satan and Death will be defeated at the very end of time by God, by Jesus. Here, From line 727 is Sin. O Father, what intends thy hand, she cried, against thy only son? What fury, O Son, possesses thee to bend that mortal dart against thy father's head? And knows for whom? For whom? Him who sits above and laughs the while at thee, ordained his drudge to execute whate'er his wrath, which he calls justice, bids. His wrath, which one day will destroy ye both. Son, father, don't fight. Don't, father and son, don't kill. Okay. Milton imagines, none of this is in the Bible, Milton's imagined this. These are allegorical figures of sin and death, as in the Fairy Queen. We create the first biological family in the history of the universe, according to Milton, after God and the Son, but before Adam and Eve have their children. They will have their children in a fallen way. Adam and Eve in the book of Genesis don't have children till after they have fallen and become sinful. Not because they have to be fallen and sinful to have children, but because that's just the order in which things happen. I would note that sin also has that satanic habit of describing God as his wrath, which he calls justice, denying that God is just, denying that he is divine. He sits above, he calls his wrath justice. His wrath, which one day will destroy ye both. Death and Satan, you will both be destroyed by God eventually. She spake, and at her words the hellish pest forbore. Then these to her Satan returned. I don't know who you are. So strange thy outcry, and thy words so strange thou interposes, and my sudden hand prevented spares to tell thee yet by deeds what intends till first I know of thee, what thing thou art, thus double formed, and why in this infernal vale first met thou callest me father, and that phantasm calls my son. I know thee not, nor ever saw till now sight more detestable than him and thee. I don't know you, I know thee not. And you look revolting. The most detestable thing I've ever seen. Sin is a woman on top. If this seems misogynist, and then kind of a monster from the bottom, and terrible hellhounds are crawling out of her and then crawling back in and gnawing her in agony. This image is partly taken from an image of Spenser's from Book 1, Canto 1 of the Fairy Queen, which you haven't read and isn't in the section of the book you purchased. To whom the portress of Hellgate replied, Hast thou forgot me then? And do I seem now in thine eyes so foul? Once deemed so fair in heaven, when at the assembly and in the sight of all the seraphim with thee combined in bold conspiracy against heaven's king, all in a sudden miserable pain surprised thee, dim thine eyes in dizzy swum in darkness, while the head flames thick and fast threw forth, till on the left side opening wide, likest to thee in shape and countenance bright, then shining heavenly fair, a goddess armed out of thy head I sprung. Amazement seized all the host of heaven. Back they recoiled afraid at first, and called me sin, and for sign portentous held me. But familiar grown I pleased, and with attractive graces won the most averse, thee chiefly, who full oft thyself in me thy perfect image viewing, becamest enamored, and such joy thou tookst with me in secret, that my womb conceived a growing burden. Meanwhile, war rose, and fields were fought in heaven, wherein remained what for what could else to our Almighty full clear victory. For what could else, by the way? What could happen but victory? Here's a retelling of a Greek and Roman mythological story about Zeus, aka Jupiter, and his daughter, Athena, aka Minerva. Zeus, Jupiter, king of the gods, has a terrible headache. Athena bursts out of his head, fully armed as here. So here, Satan is like the king of the Greek and Roman pagan gods, having this non-sexual generation of his daughter, who is then very special to him and is indeed kind of like symbolically linked to him as an expression of his will and his authority. But here's the two differences. Zeus's Athena is an embodiment of wisdom. She is the goddess of wisdom. She's also the patron goddess of Athens itself, hence the name. The Roman Minerva is more clearly about wisdom, just about wisdom. And importantly, that armed goddess is a virgin. She's kind of what Britomart aims to be, armed and virginal. Though unlike Britomart, she's never going to get married. Her relationship to her father is expressed through her complete, permanent, heavily armed virginity. Sin belongs to Satan in a way. First, she is an expression of Satan's awfulness. His sin. He has invented sin. Sin has, in an allegorical way, burst out of his head as a figure, a heavily weaponized figure. And the allegorical thing is everyone first sees sin and like that's just, oh no, that's frightening, it's terrible. But the more they get to know her, the more attractive she seems. That's how sin is. The allegory is like this extended metaphor. First I saw sin and I was alarmed. I didn't want anything to do with it, but then I started to look prettier and prettier, sexier and sexier. And then Satan has fathered an incestuous child on the daughter who sprung out of his head. Very much the opposite of how Zeus, aka Jupiter, behaves. Things are bad. Death comes out. Death then rapes the mother. Rape got these yelling monsters with Jesus Christ surround me. Hourly conceived and hourly born with sorrow infinite to me. For when they listened to the womb they bred them, they returned and howl and gnaw my bowels. They were past and bursting forth afresh, with conscious terrors vex me round. Death is the enemy. Death is going to destroy everyone. And notice, Satan just switches gears. First, I don't know you. You're horrible. Here, from about line 815. She finished, and the subtle fiend his lore soon learned. Now mild, and thus answered smooth. Here he plays his game. Dear daughter, since thou claimst me for thy sire, my fair son here thou showst me, the dear pledge of dalliance had with thee in heaven, and joys then sweet. Now sad to mention through dire change, befallen us unforeseen, unthought of. Know I come no enemy, but to set free from out this dark and dismal house of pain, both him and thee, and all the heavenly host of spirits that in our just pretenses armed, fell with us from on high. From them I go, this uncouth errand soul, and one for all myself exposed, with lonely steps to tread the unfounded deep, and through the void immense to search, with wandering across a place foretold should be. I'm here to set you free. He's lying. First of all, not only is he smooth like your so beautiful, of course, baby, I love you. Yes, now I say, yes, of course, I love you so much. It's good to see you. And our fair son. The obvious line is our fair son. Death is not good looking to anybody. He's a hideous monster. A hideous monster who almost killed his father a second ago. But I'm here to set sin and death free. I'm here working for you. And that works. That works. And he persuades Night as well, and off he goes. We leave Satan at the end of book 2, working through primordial chaos. It's difficult, it's hard, and actually finally seeing the earth itself. From about line 1046, Oasis spread wings, and at leisure behold, far off the imperial heaven, extended wide in circuit, undetermined square around, with opal towers and battlements adorned of living sapphire, once his native seat, and fast by, hanging in a golden chain, this pendant world, in bigness as a star of smallest magnitude close by the moon. Thither, full fraught with mischievous revenge, accursed and an accursed hour, he hies. Our last image of the book is this pendant world, the world we live in, hanging from heaven by a golden chain, and it's the proportions, it looks like a star compared near the moon, right? Earth tiny like the star, moon, a heaven big like the moon. Satan is on his way, he's gotten out of heaven, he's going to paradise, but paradise will only make him more miserable. He said the mind is his own place, and his place he carries with him.